So now we need to create the controller, the client side controller class. And how we can do that, we can simply while we are on the form on our component, we can simply click on controller here. So this is the client side controller which gets created automatically. And if we go to our component, we see we need to define this function for our handler attribute, handler part, and then we have defined, on the click of a button, we have defined create expense. These are functions we need to define in our controller, and we will not be writing all the code in the controller itself. For code maintainability and reusability, what we will do, we will create another JavaScript class which will work as a helper for this class, and in turn will have all the functionality which we need. So in this controller, we will have only the atomic part so that the controller does not get too cluttered. And again, as I told you, for code maintainability and reusability, we will create a separate helper class. So let's first define these functions and then we can do that. So first of all, we have our function name doInit. Okay. So here what we will do, we will call the method getExpense, and we will pass in their component. Okay. Where is this getExpense defined? Here. Okay. Sorry, getExpenses. And we will pass whatever is coming from a component to that method, because the user input will be on the component, and from there we will pass that to that method. Then we have another, on the click of a button, we have the class function which is create expense, and let's simply copy and paste this from here. Okay. And now here what we will do, we will first of all take the amount field, because on that we will be doing some calculations if we need. So that is the numeric value which can be used in the calculation. So this is being stored in the attribute whose unique identifier is amount. So we will find for the amount attribute. Okay. And then we will get the value from that, and we will store in the AMT variable, AMT field dot get, and here what we need to do, v dot value. Okay. Now first let's check if the amount field is blank or not, so that we do not get any null pointer errors. If it's not blank, AMT, if it's blank, or sorry, or if it's null or blank, then we need to add error here. Okay. So AMT field dot add errors, AMT field dot add errors, v dot value, comma, and what the message, you can show any message which you want. So the message should be please enter amount. Okay. So we need to show the message that please enter amount. So here is the bracket, and this bracket is for if. Else if the field, if the value is there, then where, because what create expense is doing, it is creating a new expense, where new expense, a variable has been defined equals to component dot get and v dot new expense. Because if I go to my form controller and client name redeemed, here you can see the name which we have given is a new expense, where we also provided the default value if in case the user misses anything. Okay, so we are creating, so this attribute is being bind to this attribute, this value, so that the expense is being created here. Okay, so that's why this name new expense we have used here. V dot new expense, and what shall the new expense, on the click of a button we are binding that to new expense, but what all the values are there that user has input, we also need to pass that value. So for that, what we will do, we will create a helper class, and in that we will write all that functionality as I told you before. Component comma new expense. If it is not making any sense to you, no, don't worry. In the next video, when we will be writing the helper class, everything will be just fine. 6th line, 5th column. Okay, we have missed a semicolon here. This statement we have not closed. That's why the code should be neat and clean. And okay, we have missed a comma here as well. Now let me save it. Okay, so it has saved successfully. Now in the next video we will create the helper client side controller, where we will define the helper function.